Hi guys, so I'm very excited to be here. It's my first time in Budapest, and besides that, it's my first time in the conference. I met a lot of amazing people and great friends, and I don't know if you downloaded the app of the conference, but I'm on the first place in the leaderboard, and you're welcome to join me in the competition. So I'm here today to share with you my story from the QA perspective of transitioning to Agile. So a little over a year ago, the company I work for, Minute Media, was transitioning to Agile and to a structure we call pod structure. And we had some struggles in this transition, and I felt like I have a story to share. So I'm here today to tell you what were my conclusions from this experience, and I hope you can implement some of these things. So as I said, my name is Noy. I'm from Tel Aviv. I was born in 1992 and started working in QA at the age of 18. So it makes it roughly 32% of my life I've been doing QA. And in 2014, I started working at Minute Media, and I'm heading the QA support and account management globally. In my spare time, besides doing yoga, Pilates, and some random things, I'm also teaching QA pro bono in a women rehabilitation program. And my trainee was recently accepted to work in a global company as a QA, clearly. And I take a lot of pride in it. And I like to consider myself a quality warrior. So as I said, I'm going to share my story and my team's story of transitioning to Agile. And first, we'll cover the problem, the reason why we had to do it, and the solution, which was choosing the pod structure. Then the challenges, because any transition is challenging and struggling, so the challenges we had, and most importantly, the tackle, how we tackled all the challenges to assure a smooth transition. And last will be the takeaways, what I learned from this experience, and I hope you can take with you and implement in your own groups. So we started as a small startup with only one owned and operated football media brand. So when I say brand in this context, I mean website, distribution tools, CMS, management tools, and at least 2 mobile apps for iOS and Android. And our unique and innovative platform showed expansion potential. So we later on expanded it to support other sports fields and other media fields as well. And many other media companies showed interest in our platform. And we then decided to open it and sell it to others. So our QA, QA responsibilities expanded from only one brand to a lot brands. Right now, I think we are on 20 mobile apps and 8 brands in general and counting. And we have multiple code bases, and we have complex logics and dependencies. And this change, this fast growth put us in an urgent need to make a change in the way we're developing, testing, of course, and releasing new versions. So if I need to list the challenges we had, I would say, first, we needed to scale very easily. We had multiple code bases to manage. We're fastly growing, and we have many new clients to support now. So what we did. Our previous structure was profession-based, as I call it. We had a QA team, dev team, and a product and design team. So first, we united our tech and product operations into one delivery and execution group. It is no longer, usually it's product against tech or QA against developers. No, we are all working together to develop our product. And then what we did, we ditched the profession-based structure, and we gathered a few custom Agile teams. And these teams are aligned with our business mission, with our business goals, and each team is called a pod. So you probably ask yourself, what is a pod? This is when I'm sharing what is a pod. So pods are custom Agile teams of no more than 8 members. Each team is responsible of developing a specific part of the feature, specific service, platform, and eventually, each of the teams, each of the pods is developing something separately, but eventually it all assembles to one product, to one platform. So Agile pods are cross-functional and combine talent from diverse practices. So you can find in the pods QA, of course, developers, front-end, back-end, product managers, designers, architects, all working together. And the principle is that Agile pods are fairly self-sufficient to develop features, to develop versions on their own, and as a result, minimizing dependencies and increasing velocity. And this approach allows us to learn from failures along the way in order to adapt to new circumstances and, of course, to produce breakthrough results. And you probably ask what's the difference. So pods get similar features as any other Agile groups, only here, as I said, each group is 100% independent. So one team can develop, for example, in my company, one team is developing a video product, and the other team is developing an editor to create articles. There's no relation between them, but eventually it all assembles into one product. So the life cycle is 2 weeks and has consistent phases along the way. And we have what we call pod master, who's responsible of keeping the team focused on their goal. And in our case, the pod masters are also hands-on, active senior developers. And we have the product manager who's creating a prioritized list and the pod scope. And during the sprint planning, the pods pulls a small chunk from the pod backlog and decides how to implement it. And most importantly, the sprint ends with a retrospective. We're looking back and measuring and understanding what we did right and what we did wrong. And we also have what we call a sniffing meeting. In the sniffing meeting, we're observing the product requirement for the future sprints. And we see how it's going to work and what is involved in it. And we have also what we call floating professions. So, you know, in development groups, you have other professions than just developers, QA, product, designers. You also have BI and analysts and DevOps and other things that you don't really need to have integrated in a specific pod. They are unique people, we call it. They're providing unique services to all pods. So DevOps, they're providing the services to all, we have 4 pods, to all 4 pods. And BI, her name is Elena, she's amazing. She's responsible of defining our strategy for all pods. So this is what the floating profession is. So the advantages, you can probably believe it's pretty straightforward. So we have 4 teams focused on 4 major projects. But it's not just 4 major projects, it's 4 major crucial projects for our company, and they do it in parallel. So they're developing each one separately, and they're running forward, and they don't have any dependencies between them. And of course, it allows us to estimate, commit, and deliver more reliably, especially since expertise are available within the pod. And as I said, it reduces dependencies and increases velocity, which means we now can scale much more easily. And it minimizes level of supervision. So, you know, each role holds a lot of responsibility in it. When you're a tester, when you're QA in one of these pods, you're on your own. You don't have the white team. You don't have 5 people with you to test this project. You're the one that's leading the project from the QA perspective. So it also helps us recruit better people, you know, because each role holds a lot of responsibility in it, and it helps our people to become more mature and to lead and be in the front. And of course, as I said before, it allows us to learn from failures along the way and to adapt to new circumstances, which is very, very important when you're not only developing for yourself, you're also developing for other clients. So it allows us to support our clients and the constant growth of the company. So what is challenging? It sounds you know, pretty cool. We were able to transition to Agile. By the way, how many of you actually practice Agile? Okay, and how many of you worked in the company while the company transitioned to work in Agile? So you can probably relate. It's not very easy. You used to work in one way, and then you need to work in another way. And I don't know, I feel, maybe it's just me, but I feel like for developers, they can be like, okay, so now we're working on this, then we go up and work with another person. It's challenging, I'm not underestimating. But for QA, we're used to work as a team and to get prioritized tasks and release things together. It's much more challenging, at least from my perspective. So moving to the pod structure was really on point. But we still had some challenges, and I really needed to find a way to tackle it. So we needed to adapt, of course, to this new reorganization, and my team needed to lead things on their own, and I needed to guide them, and I was like, what am I doing? I wasn't quite sure. And we also needed to make sure we're not becoming a bottleneck, which is always, it's such a, this word makes me shiver, sort of. I hate to hear this QA are causing a, becoming a bottleneck. So we needed to make sure we can't just stop, okay, how we're working. We needed to make sure that we're adapting, but we're not causing any delays. And since each one of them is now integrated into a team and need to lead and need to be in the front and need to be the lead QA, they needed to learn new techniques and they need to learn management skills, QA management skills that before that were exclusively my responsibility. And the biggest challenges, I believe, is preserving the crucial, very, very crucial end-to-end QA perspective on the product and the knowledge. So I don't know how is it in your companies, but in my company, the QA team are the people to go to get your answers. So why did we develop this feature? Ask QA. How does it work? Ask QA. What are the limitations? Ask QA. This is how it is. So I didn't want to lose it. I didn't want someone that is now focusing on mobile to only know things about mobile, especially because we're developing things separately, but eventually it becomes one product. So they needed to have this end-to-end perspective. So remember I said before I'm a quality warrior? So I couldn't sleep. I got so nervous. I went to my manager every day. I'm like, I need to nail this down. I need to understand how to do it right. It's not, the whole team, all the development team are moving to Agile, great. But I don't want the QA team to stay in the back and be like unsure and uncertain how to do it. So I wanted to be the one that would be, okay, so we should do this and that. We should do, you should now be able to do, I don't know, A or B. And I stopped and I said, okay, let's try this. And I believe that some of my actions, of course, this is something that is very easy to say looking back, but looking back, I believe that some of my actions actually helped us in this process. And I summarize it to 5 simple actions that I hope you can follow and maybe implement it later in your groups. So first, identify strength and interest. So first, I identified each member's strength and assigned them to the pod where they will be most beneficial and will find most interest. So the idea here was first and foremost to allow them a smoother transition, because if they work in their preferable domain, there is a greater chance that they will be able to adapt much easily. And then, of course, I wanted to let them voice their opinion. So from working on the whole product, they just need to focus on just a specific area of the product. So I wanted to check what they know and what they want and which is their preferable domain. And I believe that letting them work in the preferable domain reduced the uncertainty in this structure change. Give full context and involve in the decision-making process. So right before the first sprints kicked off, I walked each of my team members through the pod backlog, and we identified the QA needs, and we estimated timelines, and we set acceptance criteria that Don mentioned earlier, and I'll share more about it later. And then we reviewed the quarterly plan of the pod, and we made sure that we have everything we need, and we know everything we need in order to be prepared. And, I'm not hiding anything. So before that, I knew the business plan. I knew what is coming next. But now, I share this information with my team. And when they know what is coming next, and when they're part of the decision-making process, it reduces the uncertainty. They know where they're going to. They know what is the next step. They know how to be prepared. They know what tools they should use. So I believe this is very, very important. Teach managerial skills. So as I said before this transition, I was the only one with the QA managerial skills. And I needed to teach my team risk assessment methods and time estimation tricks and other tools that should be at hand for them now that they're in the focus, now they're leading QA in their teams. So a nice trick I taught them is that no matter, by the way, I didn't say it before, but my team, they're doing both automation and manual QA. So for manual especially, I told them that no matter how minor the task might be, you should always spare a half day and give a half-day buffer to assure more than one test cycle in case of bugs to make sure you're not causing delays. So this is nice. It's working for us. Maybe it will work for you too. Create supportive procedures. So I said before acceptance criteria. So we enforced a new procedure we call acceptance criteria. So the QA in charge is responsible of creating a set of steps to follow before passing the version to QA. It's similar definition of done, but definition of development process done. So it can be running specific automation flows. It can be, I don't know, passing the version through visual QA if it's something that is visual. And you know, sometimes it might sound very, very stupid to you, but sometimes it just take the version and put it in a different environment than yours to make sure it's working on other machines than just the developer's machine. So we found that this new procedure is helping us to reduce the delays, and it improves the version stability. And I think you should try it. It's working very, very good for us, and I very recommended it. Besides that, we're including the QA time estimation as part of the whole task time estimation. So it probably sounds very clear to you, but in my company, before this transition, so the QA time estimation, they ask me what is the time estimation, and then you know, the development what is the time estimation, and I don't know who eventually calculated it together into the final due date. But this is something that we took advantage of this transition to make sure that QA time estimation should be calculated within the whole task due date, because you can't really separate QA from the process. And some other procedures we created is team rotation to make sure that no one is losing interest and then getting in their comfort zone for too long, and team backup and support in case of busy times. And we have our own separated bugs repository where we document everything, even the things that are very, very low priority, so just so we know what are the bugs that we have. And I think this is probably the most important one, team communication. So at the end of the day, the QA team is one unit, right, that is responsible of assuring the product quality end to end. So transitioning to Agile pods shouldn't affect our mission. It should only enable a smooth and fast and efficient process. So even if one team is working on, I don't know, on the video, as I said before, and another on the editor, eventually we should all know what's happening, and we should all test it in an integrative way, end to end. So to make sure we're preserving our crucial end-to-end perspective, I set, and I said before, so should you understand something about me, I don't really like meetings. I prefer to be 100% productive. But I felt like we need to set some meetings just to make sure we're still being united. So first we have our QA daily update. So once the pod daily stands up over, we're gathering for 5 to 10 minutes to share current status with each other. And the idea here was to make sure everyone knows what we're doing, even though by the way, we're sitting in the same room, just to make sure what exactly is going on currently. And as I said, I don't like meetings, and sometimes I prefer to skip it, and sometimes we're busy. So it's not like we're giving up or we're ditching it. No, we still send updates, and just sending an update on HipChat or Slack or email, it's very, very efficient, and we never give up on that. And another thing is at the end of the week, we're gathering for about an hour to consult with each other, to share techniques, to demonstrate the recent releases, and of course, I use this time to socialize and to make sure we're still staying one team who's united and work together. So this is my story, and I learned some things in this process. And I hope you can take some of my takeaways, and even if you're task managers or even if you're a team member, I think that you can take these ideas and hopefully implement it in your own groups. So first, I think that more responsibility means more engagement, maturity, and involvement. Giving people more responsibility really helps them become more mature, better at the work. So don't be afraid of ask for more responsibility. Don't be afraid to give more responsibility. Eventually, everyone wins from that. Back up your team, but let them be in the front. So I'm there for my team to consult, to support, to whatever they need, but they're the one in the front. They're the one facing the teams. They're the one that are committing, and they're the one, leading quality in their team. I said it before after Don's presentation. So quality is the responsibility of everyone, but they're the one leading it. Maximize motivation by delegating tasks and responsibilities. So I was afraid at the beginning to give them some of my management responsibilities, but it made them more motivated. And you should find what motivates your team, but try more tasks, more management, something that is more complex and is more intriguing. Set the tone, standards, and strategy, but let the magic happen on its own. So with the team, of course, I'm deciding what are the tools, what are the techniques, what is the strategy, how they should work, if it should be very detailed test cases, if it should be not. But eventually it happens, the magic happens. They go to their team and they decide how they want to work, and they know the things on the ground. They know the work, so they know how it should be done. So the high-level strategy, I said it, and I said it with them, but eventually they take it to their pods and they do whatever they think is right. And this is where I think mentor is more important than take over. So I help my team behind the scenes, and I mentor them, and I give them the tools, and we set a strategy and procedures together. But I'm not taking over. They're the one that they became test managers. They're not only testers, and I think you should ask your manager, or you as a manager should try to mentor and train and lead, and not only take over and be in the front. So this is what I learned from this experience, and I wanted to thank you for listening. And do we have any questions, maybe?
Yes, we have a couple of those.
Great.
We run out a little bit of time, so what we're going to do, we take the top two, then give you time to switch rooms if you wish so. And I think we can answer questions either face-to-face with the lady outside of the room, or electronically. So we take the top two questions. So the first one, in a pod, what's the role of the QA in relation to unit testing?
So we're more responsible in my team. We're more responsible of automation and manual testing, and then this, setting the quality process. But we're always, we're pushing the developers and pushing whoever need to be responsible over quality. So if it's unit testing, and if it's in continuous integration, if it's simply tell them run automation, sometimes you need to tell people what to do. We're the one who's doing that, so it's very, very important.
Okay. Second question, what happens if the QA task estimation is much more than the development estimation?
It happens, by the way. It happens, and estimations, sometimes they cut your estimation, or sometimes they tell you have a due date, but sometimes QA time estimation is longer, and we we take it when the task happens, so we're like, okay, this is how it is, and people try to show understanding, the managers, the leaders, whatever, but then we highlight these cases, and we make sure to understand why it took us so long, and we also try to automate things and to improve for future cases. But it's acceptable, so if QA takes more than development, like people appreciate what we do and they understand it's important, so this is how it is.